Let's chat a little bit more about COVID. We have been speaking a lot about the true devastation that we have seen in our local communities around what the pandemic has done to customers' appetite for going out, just from anything, retail perspective, restaurants, the ability to travel and the like. You have been very outspoken about additional need forthcoming, whether it be through the federal government and additional state stimulus for businesses that have really, really suffered as a result of this ongoing pandemic. What have you been working on that respect, and have you been able to generate support among your colleagues for an additional package of this nature?
The minority office took more of a position that we didn't need additional state stimulus. We needed to do with the Federal CARES Act money what it was intended to do, and that was to take care of our businesses that were shut down through no fault of their own. We were given $1.25 billion in federal monies, and largely those were retained. There are policy differences about whether we should have used that money to backstop government operations or assist our small business community. Our estimation is we did not assist our small business community enough. There was a recent Harvard and Brown study that estimated up to 40% of Rhode Island small businesses are closing or have closed. So that is a real issue. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy, and our perspective is that what we should have done in the past is have more of the federal money go to our small businesses, and if any more federal money comes in the future, we need to focus on taking care of the lifeblood of our economy, which are our small businesses. As it relates to the pandemic response, House Republicans have said that we don't believe we should have 11 months of executive order where we have a governor essentially legislating, doing all our jobs. And so we have proposed legislation that requires that any extension of a state of emergency past 30 days requires action by the General Assembly. Under current law, the only way we can get out of a state of emergency is by the House and Senate each passing a resolution taking us out, or the governor unilaterally taking us out. Our perspective is that the General Assembly should have to affirmatively act in order to continue a state of emergency. In addition to that, we've proposed a joint House and Senate oversight committee. One of our largest complaints was that during the pandemic, the General Assembly didn't conduct oversight of the decisions that were being made. Didn't conduct sufficient oversight of the decisions that were being made by the executive branch, the unilateral decisions. So we have legislation that mandates, that actually creates a joint House and Senate oversight committee and mandates that they conduct oversight within 30 days after the declaration of an emergency. And we think having that interaction of the first branch of government with the executive branch would do a lot better in making sure our regulations are placed appropriately. We feel that when we're looking at distributing federal money, we focus on our small businesses. One of the issues we had as I'm a hotel owner is that there was a hotel program that was created that was just targeted at hotels with 200 plus rooms. I think that only applies to 11 hotels in the state. There were thousands of boutique hotels in this state who couldn't access that program. As to my take on the fiscal condition of the state, we were doing well before the pandemic, but we weren't doing nearly as well as other states. Much of the economic activity we had in the state was downstream of other states. I go up to Boston a lot. There were cranes everywhere. Frankly, the only cranes I saw in the sky in Rhode Island were buildings that had some type of state subsidy or were knocking things down. We didn't have the organic development that we need in the state, and the way we're going to accomplish that is through a tax policy and municipal policies that encourage economic growth, and we just frankly haven't had that for a long time, which is why I'm very concerned about the proposal to increase our top marginal income tax rate. COVID has accelerated the process in this country of us being more mobile. I was having Zoom meetings when I was on vacation and no one even knew. It's going to be happening more and more, and people are going to be voting with their feet more and more than they already have, and they were doing it a lot before COVID. So we need to be highly competitive in this state. We're fighting against Florida's weather as it is, and they don't have an income tax. If we're going to be talking about raising the marginal income tax rate, we should have, I think, frankly, a more honest conversation about it. If you remember back in 2010 and 2011, when we decreased our marginal income tax rate, we also eliminated multiple itemized deductions that you have on your federal net income. That's why now you have two separate net incomes, a federal net income and a state net income. And it's because when we reduced the tax rate, we also eliminated all these deductions that Rhode Islanders could take. So if we're going to talk about raising our income tax rate, we need to talk about putting those deductions back in. And finally, everything we're talking about with economic development is building castles on sand, because the foundation of any strong economy is an educated, critically thinking society. And we need to radically look at the way we are educating our children. We've been talking about it for decades. It is time for parents in failing school districts to be able to get their kids out of that school and into a school that is going to educate their kids so they have a bright future. It's not just an economic development issue, it is a civil rights issue, and we've been failing our children for decades. And it's time for bold critical action because the current system cannot work anymore. Thank you.
You bring up a number of issues there, Leader Filippi, that I think warrant follow-up, and I'm really pleased to hear your comments about the income tax hikes and the the devastation of our local economy and how we would be able to digest that. So you're correct when you point out that the tax reform initiatives that we went through a couple of years ago were designed to be revenue neutral. And to get there, we did advocate for the elimination of certain deductions. So that is how we got it to be a revenue neutral place. And subsequently, with the elimination of state and local taxes, the burden on the taxpayers of Rhode Island continues to be, pretty high. So we don't want to go down that path for sure. But let me interject another possibility into what you're saying, and the concept of what do we do in this remote work from home environment? What can we do as a state to really make it a game changer? And every state right now is looking at ways in which they could make their places, their homes, their states, their cities, their towns more conducive to this work from home environment, and to actually bring people in that can bring their job creating abilities, that could bring their charitable contributions, that could contribute to the tax base. So COVID has made all things possible today. Everything is just sort of, brand new. We can start from the beginning. Are there any interesting ideas that you have or that you've seen that would allow us to really put forward a really interesting idea to capture population using work from home?
So you're going to have to be appealing to not just people's wallets, but their desires. So I don't think there's one silver bullet that will be able to capture this highly mobile society. I think we have to look at everything from education, which we just spoke about, tax rates, but also quality of life. What can we do here in the state to make people want to live here? We do have a wonderful state. Do we need to invest more in our parks? Do we need to have more open space? Do we need to secure people's right to access the shoreline? So if you're trying to capture this highly mobile society, which I think we all want to capture, it has to be a holistic approach. People like to go out. Why are our bars shut? We have a lower transmission rate now than the last time the bars were open. I think the last time the bars were open, we had a 4% transmission rate, and we're down to, I think, 2.2%. Why are our bars not open? People want to live places where you can have fun and enjoy yourself. So it's everything, Lori, from tax policy, which we spoke about, to schools, which we spoke about, and also how can we make sure that people enjoy living in Rhode Island and want to live here and pay taxes here. So there's no silver bullet, but we have to look at everything, and we're prepared to do so.
Thank you, Leader Filippi.